Hello, welcome. I must say, uh, we have never had so many people in this chamber for some time. So it is delightful to see everyone here. I hope that you get to talk to your neighbors and your friends that you haven't seen for a little bit. I certainly did my share, and so I welcome you. My name is Marie Zhuang. I'm on the Council of Town of Hillsborough. Tonight we also have Lori Adams and Christine Crowley. We have a strong council that really support the Hillsborough Neighborhood Network. And I also want to invite our team leaders here, the chair, Mike Drong, also volunteer coordinator for CERT, Deb Kelly. Come on up. Yeah, we're going to showcase these people for a little bit. Come on. Matt Ken, Lisa Edwards. All right. We have a few, and then we have Cos, our CERT coordinator for Central County Fire Departments. He just celebrated his birthday, 19 years old, and we want to highlight that. We also have Dina Cunningham, who is our, what is it? This emergency resiliency specialist from Central County Fire Departments. We're very fortunate to also have our fire chief, Central County Fire Chief, Dave Pucci here. We also have a great support from our city manager, Doug Davis. Thank you so much. And we also have former mayors, Kitty Maluli and Paul Regan. So as you know, that we're very strong on the program in terms of emergency preparedness. And I want to really highlight the Hillsborough Neighborhood Network. You can be part of the team, and we would really welcome you to do so. Hillsborough Neighborhood Network, really the main mission is to equip our residents, the knowledge, the resources, the relations to stay safe for your family and to respond to disasters or emergency confidently. Simple as that. And so it is really important that we help each other. We get to know each other. You're going to later hear from Heather, our guest speakers, and I won't do further introductions until later. But really, we encourage you to sign up for CERT training. We have them in English instructions, Mandarin Chinese instructions. We also have a teen programs for, is that 16? Grades 9 and up. So we have 3 different programs that would tailor to our community, and we highly encourage you to talk to your neighbors, encourage you to spread the words, and encourage them to sign up for training, because the training is going to help you become situational aware of what happens and take action to protect yourself and your families to stay safe. So again, I want to thank the team. It is great, and we're going to start the program, and I'm going to hand my mic to Kaz. Oh, you got it.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for coming out despite the rain for this important conversation. Again, my name is Kaz Chow. I'm the CERT coordinator for CCFD. I have the great honor this evening of introducing Ms. Heather Vandenberghe. I first got to meet Heather at one of our Bay Area-wide CERT leadership meetings in 2025, and she presented for the county as well. She loves to give these kinds of important discussions with the various community members in the Bay Area. As the H&N team was thinking of possible candidates for this kickoff of the speaker series, Heather's name quickly rose to the top of our list. Heather has a vast amount of experience in the business and marketing world. She notably held many senior leadership positions with companies like Louis Vuitton, Tommy Hilfiger, Westfield Corporation, et cetera. But tonight she's here to have an important conversation and really reflect 1 year later after the devastating fires at the Pacific Palisades, the Eaton fire incident, she's here tonight to share firsthand her experience of the loss of her home, the evacuation, the long and complex recovery process that followed. She's going to give you some little tips about things that we can all take home and do tonight, this weekend. Some of the things that she wishes she had done, some things that she did well. She'll take those different times to reflect. Most importantly, I think for everyone here who has an interest in community preparedness and community resilience, we're all going to find this very informative, very timely, and some very valuable information. So we'll let Heather take it off. And then once she's done with her presentation, Marie and I will help to facilitate the Q&A as well. So with that, I hope you'll join me in welcoming Ms. Heather Vandenberghe.
Hey everyone, I'm going to sit if that's okay, just so it feels a little more conversational and not like I'm talking at you, so if that's all right. I was really honored to ask to speak for a lot of reasons. One of which is that I love this community, this area up here. I've moved to Woodside since, but this whole peninsula area I had called home years ago when I was in grad school. And I'm really impressed at how proactive the teams up here are in protecting their communities. So in Los Angeles, we had been evacuated many times. We had a really fantastic alert system. So every time something happened, my phone would go crazy. But we never really sat together like a community like this and said, what do we do if this comes here? So I'm really impressed at the team with Kaz and everyone here who put this together. I'm really proud to be here talking to you. So we're a year out, right, from this devastating fire. So 7,000 of us in the Palisades lost our homes, which is a crazy number, 9,000 in Altadena. There's only been a couple of hundred permits issued so far. There's a lot going on with the rebuild. When the fire happened, I'm just going to kind of tell the story of how it happened, and then I can get to kind of what I learned. Do you want me to stand up? Yeah? Okay, I'll stand up. Stand up. I'm wearing like slight heels, so if I can't stand up for a half hour, forgive me. I was a fashion executive for many years, and I could do it for long periods of time, but I can't anymore. Um, Anyways, so the day the fire happened, it was January 7th. I was on a work call in my like a pool house outside of my main house, and I got the alert. There's a fire on Palisades Drive. 1 week earlier, I'd gotten the same alert. Like I said, we had a fantastic alert system. So every single time there was a brush fire anywhere near us, we would get alerts. At some point, it gets to be a little bit the boy who cried wolf, right? So at some point, you're kind of like, it's another alert, right? So I got the alert, and I thought a week ago, I got the same alert. My mother lived up in that area, and I called her and I was like, there's a fire. Are you okay? And she's like, there's no fire. They've already put it out. And she said, even if there was a fire, I'm not leaving. This is prophetic. So a week later, there's a fire on Palisades Drive, same location. What we know today is that that fire is the one that created the January 7th fire, right? But we didn't know that at the time. So I get this alert. I was like, this is weird, same location. And all I get is one alert. And so I think, well, I'll just wait. Like, I'll wait. I'll get another alert if there's something really serious. I'm on a work phone call. I keep talking. My older daughter, who's up here at Stanford, is the one who keeps like texting me, like, are you okay? And I was like, since when does a college kid call their mom this often to ask if I'm okay? She said, do you smell smoke? And I was like, I'm on a work call. Leave me alone. And she said, could you please just get off the phone? Like, she's texting me, just get off the phone and walk outside and tell me if you smell smoke or if you see smoke. I was like, fine. So I get off my call and I walk outside and I take a video for her. And the video I take, I can't believe I have it, is black smoke just roaring towards me. So that morning, I had just taken my Christmas tree down. My father had come out with a buzzsaw. We were trying to chop off the Christmas tree, and the winds were so high that chunks of Christmas tree were flying around the neighborhood. So I knew the winds were high. But I didn't expect how high it was that this was going to move this fast. So I stand out there and I take a video, and the smoke is black. So when the smoke is black, fire chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it means structures are burned, right? So the smoke is black and it's coming towards us. And my golden retriever, by the way, is laying calmly in the grass in this video, because people are like, didn't your dogs alert you? My dogs did not alert me. People, do not ever count on your animals to alert you that something's happening. My dogs were just like, wow, it's a beautiful day and the wind feels good on my fur. And anyways, I take this video, I send it to her, and I'm doing a voiceover, right? And I was like, yeah, look, the smoke's really far away. We're totally fine. I send it to her, and I'm like, we are not totally fine. We are not fine. And I say we because my daughter Elle, who's here with me tonight, was on Christmas break. We were very fortunate because the high school was still on Christmas break. The elementary school was not. And so for those parents, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. And I've heard stories from friends and people in the community that people were at work and they were trying to get into the Palisades and they were stopped at the border and told you can either get your kid at school or you can go home. You cannot do both. People lost their pets, people lost everything in their homes, and they were scrambling to get their elementary school kids out of class and get them home safely. It happened so fast. I'm watching it come over. I realize we need to go. I'm not sure we need to go, but I'm feeling like we need to go. So I go outside and I lived on a circle. And the Palisades is very similar to this community, I think, where there's a lot of big homes. And there's a lot of homes that are far, far away. Our community was one where our lots were all pretty near each other, but there were hills, right? And so sometimes you know your neighbors and sometimes you don't. I very fortunately had met the neighbor across from me that way, across from me that way, next to me here, and across from me there. I knew everyone enough to have their phone numbers. We did not hang out together. We did not drink wine together. This is Los Angeles, where everyone says we should have lunch, and you never, ever have lunch. You never see them again, but they're like, we should come over for wine. Yes, you never go over for wine. You never, ever see them. But we had each other's numbers, right? And we knew each other's names. I walk out to my front yard, and I see Amelia, who's at the other side, who's a soap opera actress, by the way, because this is Los Angeles. And so she was off that day. She's outside. And I was like, hey, are you evacuating? And she's like, I don't know. We haven't gotten an evacuation notice. LA is usually very, very good with their evacuation notices. So they're very good in telling you there's a fire, and they're usually very good in evacuating you. I had evacuated probably 3 times in the past 6 years for other things that were going on. Not because we were endangered by fire where I live, but because we were a path for the fire trucks. And so getting us away allowed the emergency vehicles to get in. So we were like, it's odd, right? We haven't gotten an evacuation notice. And she's like, I don't know, we're screaming at each other. And then another guy down the street, we see him driving out, and she's like, hey, are you evacuating? And he's like, yeah, I'm evacuating. Get out, get out. And so we're like, okay, I don't know. She's like, okay, go inside and then call me in 5 minutes. So I go inside. I'm trying to access some news information. I can't really. This one's in her pajamas. It's 11 in the morning, but she's on break, so we're going to let it be. I was like, get yourself dressed. I think we have to evacuate. Within 10 minutes, we evacuated. So it got so crazy so fast. And the reports later, my father lived on the south side of the Palisades in an area called the Riviera, on a hill where he could see everything. He could see the polo fields and the view and the whole thing. I thought, we'll just go evacuate there. From there, the fire chief went to the top of that hill and measured the wind at 114 miles an hour. So I'd been in a hurricane when I lived in New York City. This was hurricane wind. So by the time I go out to see Amelia again, she's loading up her truck and I'm like, I'm leaving. She's like, I'm leaving too. She's like, call me when you get to wherever you're going. Let's stay in touch about what's going on here, right? She's the only neighbor I see during this. But I had her number and I had the person next to me and I had the person there and I had the person there. And Amelia had 3 other people in the neighborhood. And I say this because neighbors are so important when you're going through stuff like this. It's important to have that person to walk outside and kind of take the temperature and be like, I'm not getting anything from the news or from the government. I don't know what to do. What are you going to do? Like it was so important to have that moment where I had a neighbor to talk to. And even the guy driving by, who was not our favorite neighbor, but even him going by being like, yeah, I'm getting out of here. You need to get out of here. That was really important for us too, right? So I get my daughter and quickly I'm watching the smoke get closer and closer and closer. And we said, I'm like, just start packing. She's a teenager. She starts packing pajamas, like 4 pair of pajamas. And I was like, I think you should get your laptop. Like, let's get a laptop. Let's get medications and cosmetic bags, whatever. We'll be back tomorrow. You don't need 4 pair of pajamas. We're going to go to granddad's house. We'll be back tomorrow. I say this not because I'm stupid. I say this because I lived on the side of Sunset Boulevard that was next to the beach. It was a 1950s neighborhood. Fires had ravaged Pacific Palisades before. They had never gone to the side where the beach was. All the houses, including mine, were built in the 1950s. They had survived everything. So it didn't even occur to me. Secondly, I had a fire hydrant on my front lawn. I was the corner lot of the neighborhood. I was like, if any fire comes here, I'm the first house saved. I've got the fire hydrant right there. They had just painted it like 6 months ago. It was bright yellow, beautiful. It's still bright yellow and beautiful. And it was never opened, by the way. Okay. So everything happened again so fast. So I go in, I'm like, okay, we've got to go. We're coming back tomorrow. That's my mistake. I was like, we're coming back tomorrow. If I had thought I just got the chills. If I had thought there was a chance that we wouldn't be coming back tomorrow, I would have grabbed not different things, more things than I grabbed. So I grabbed we call it our run bags. I had a run bag and I just come back from New York. So I had a couple of things like cosmetics and stuff already in there. I threw in one t-shirt that says girls can do anything, prophetic, pair of sweatpants, my cosmetic bag, my laptop. I go to my bedside table. I'm like getting medication. I don't take the jewelry. Why? I don't know. I don't take it. I don't take the things I had saved for my kids. I don't take their artwork. I don't take any of it because I'm coming back tomorrow. I'm just taking what I need overnight. I get my laptop in case I need to work. I happen to have some hard drives laying around, like past things. I'm like, I should throw that in the run bag. My run bag was really light. My daughter's doing the same. She's packing her pajamas. I get her to stop with the pajama packing. She gets a sweatshirt, a laptop, and we're coming back tomorrow. So we're getting ready to leave. Grab the dogs who are still sunning themselves outside. I grab the dogs, get them in the car. It doesn't feel like chaos. So that's the other thing. So when you're fleeing, I think you have a choice that it can be chaotic or it cannot. I am not someone who lives in chaos ever. So I didn't let it be chaotic. I was like, let's go. We'll be back tomorrow. Let's get our stuff. And we're walking out and I'm like, oh, I should get some dog food, and everyone's in the car. And at the very last minute, I turn and I look at my house and a little voice in my head says, you should video this house. And the louder voice in my head says, you should get the hell out right now. I always listen to my little voice. It's the voice that says like, bring an umbrella when it's gonna rain and you don't bring the umbrella and it rains on you. This is the one time the louder little voice won. And I'm really grateful it did. And here's why. I looked later at the video from the Ring camera of me exiting my house. I exited my house at 11:51 a.m. At noon that day, so 9 minutes later, I saw a video that someone posted around the corner from my house. So I left my house. I turned to go towards Sunset Boulevard, which is like our main boulevard. It's wall to wall. No one's even moving. You see flames coming towards you. And I did a complete jerk move, which is I did a 3-point turn in the middle of everyone. And I turned and we lived on a road where the Bel Air Bay Club is. It's a private beach club that has a private road. And I just said a little prayer, like I hope the road is open at the beach at Pacific Coast. And they were shutting down. I talked to my dad and he's like, they're shutting down roads in Malibu. So PCH is just closing road by road by road. And I thought, please God, let me get there before the road closes. So we go down and we get out. And we got out probably 3 minutes before they closed that part of PCH. So for my daughter, I'm really grateful that she didn't have that trauma of running from fire because we went down to the beach and we got out, we went to my dad's. 9 minutes after I left, a guy posted on Instagram, that block where I had done the jerk move of the 3-point turn, police are running to people's cars and saying, leave your car and run to the beach. That's how fast the fire came. It went from 20 minutes earlier. I'm watching it come towards me, telling my daughter, like, it's okay. Like, we're fine. It's far away. And in 20 minutes, it was on our doorstep. And people are running to the beach and like running down steep hills. So here I am. I've got 2 kids. I've got my daughter. And the other thing I grabbed on the way out was the thing that I'm so grateful I did. About 6 months earlier, I'd redone kind of like managed all my finances, gotten everything in order, all of our passports, all of our birth certificates, put everything in one place. I had 2 boxes. They were those boxes you can buy from Staples with the handle on the top, those plastic boxes. And I thought, we evacuate so much. I'm going to leave these boxes in my garage in the cabinet next to the trunk of my car. So when we evacuated, I grabbed our little run bags, I grabbed my dogs, and I grabbed those 2 boxes. That saved me so much, I can't even tell you. I have my insurance documentation, I have the deed to my house, I had the pink slip to the car, I had everyone's passports, everyone's birth certificates. Yes, you can get those things back if you have to, but God, it would have been agonizing, right? So I had that stuff. So the thought of having to run to the beach, with my daughter, with my dogs, with my boxes, with my run bags. Could you imagine? They were just leaving everything behind and running. That's how fast this went. So then we went to my father's house. He's again on the Riviera. He's kind of up on a hill looking over everything. And we're sitting there watching it. And it's like watching a slow motion horror movie, right? You're just watching the flames. I'd grown up in Pacific Palisades. So I'd grown up there. I left, I moved up here. I lived in New York. And I'd come back 10 years ago to raise my kids in Pacific Palisades. And I'm watching the town burn. And I see these flames come up over the hills towards us, above the polo fields that you might have seen on TV shows or whatever. And the polo field, by the way, didn't burn, which is amazing. Will Rogers' house burned, the whole park burned, but somehow the polo fields didn't burn. Anyways, we're watching it come, and I'm looking at the flames, and I'm looking at the house that they're about to get, and the flames are about 5 times the height of the house. So I'm going to let the fire chief let you know how crazy that is, that the flames were that high and they were moving so fast. My father's like, I think I'm going to get evacuated too. And I was like, I think you are. I get on a phone and I call a hotel. I grabbed my daughter and I was like, let's get going. There was one hotel that took dogs. So it's on the beach. We're down there. All of the Palisades is there. Everyone's there with their kids, their dogs. They offer you free drinks. We all gladly take the free drinks. And we're watching, they have TV screens watching the fire as you're checking in. And I see my daughter's high school burn. And you see like the flames kind of like right up to Amalfi Drive, which is where my dad lives. And I just thought, I'm grateful that we got out. Like, I'm so grateful we got out the way we did. The horror stories I heard later of the people trying to get their kids, trying to get their pets. Months later in New York, I met the actor Steve Guttenberg, who was on TV a lot during that time because he stayed behind for 7 days. He helped get old people out and who couldn't otherwise get themselves out. He helped save people's animals. He stayed behind and did all the rescue missions with the firefighters. He was the honorary mayor of Pacific Palisades because it was a celebrity kind of town. Right now, Billy Crystal's the honorary mayor. But anyways, he suffered lung damage and ended up being very, very ill from spending those 5 days trying to save people afterwards. So there were those of us who fled. There were people who stayed behind. But for the most part, everyone got out quickly. I woke up the next morning. I was walking my dog on the beach, and I look up, and the sky was black, and it was just apocalyptic. It was like nothing you could expect. And I just thought, let's just get the heck out of here. And so my younger daughter and I got in the car, put the dogs back in, put all the boxes back in, and we drove up to see my other daughter at Stanford. And I found out on the ride up, my daughter worked for the city councilwoman, so they were on the ground, and they sent a photo of what was our house. And I found out probably about Paso Robles on the way up that I had no house, that it was gone. And we got up here, and I decided to just stay. So I stayed. So because it's really, when I say apocalyptic, like it's a year later, and it's just decimated. If you see any photos of it, it's just gray. Everything is gray. It reminds me of in The Great Gatsby, how there's this scene where they're driving through, I think it's probably the Bronx or something like, through the Ecclesburg, and they're driving through this like dark, sooty part of town. That's Pacific Palisades right now. So the cleanup, they offered us for the Army Corps of Engineers to come in and clear your property away. I opted for that. The soil is still very dangerous. They're finding toxicity in the soil every place. And I just felt like hiring a private team to do that would have made me liable for anything that goes wrong on my property. Letting the government do it for you makes it a lot easier. They set a deadline in June that all the lots had to be cleared, so all the lots are cleared. And right now we're still dealing with like soil issues and what happens next, and do you rebuild, and all of this. In the aftermath, I stayed in touch with the neighbors that I knew. And the woman who lived next door to me, amazingly, had kind of the worst house on the block, and it's the only one that survived. And she also owned a property she rented in town. That house burned to the ground. The woman next to me, Shireen, is amazing. I call her Mrs. Kravitz. So if you ever watch Bewitched, you know there's this nosy neighbor, Mrs. Kravitz, who knows everything going on everywhere. This is Shireen. And so she started the group chat with all the neighbors. What's going on? Where are you guys? Where are you? Where are you? Okay, I've been to the property. I've been checking it out. Here's what's happening with your house. Here's what's happening with yours. Who's staying? Who's moving? Who's selling? She's still doing this. She told me yesterday we have frogs. I have a pool that hasn't been emptied. I think I'm probably responsible for the frogs. Um, anyways, having that person and that connection was great. It was great. And like I said, we never had lunch together. We never went to wine, whatever. But just having me knowing the three people who could then call three people who could then call three people, when we were going through it, when we were like, with that night when we were at the hotel and I didn't know if my house had burned, according to the maps on television, everything except my neighborhood had burned. And I was like, that's a little suspicious, but I'm going to go with it because I'm an optimist. So I was like, my house is fine. I was telling my daughter, I was like, our house is fine. She's like, I think our house might have burned. I was like, no, our house is fine. But, you know, while I was thinking that, I had Shireen, I had Amelia, I had other people chiming in like, hey, we're hearing this. We're hearing this. We hear the fire, the way the fire got to us, by the way. And I just have to say this because if you're ever sitting here thinking like it won't happen to me because I live in this pocket and my pocket is safe, here's the crazy thing that happens when you have a fire like that. As we were leaving town, I noticed that I drive one way, I drive down the street and the winds are going this way. And on the next block, the winds are going this way. It's not a typical wind situation. So it changes direction and it curves around and it goes to the places you don't think it would ever go. I was the 1950s neighborhood. The fire had never jumped Sunset. Here's what happened. The fire came up through Malibu, over the Palisades, through the hills. It got to Temescal Canyon, lots of dry brush, right? It jumped Sunset at Temescal Canyon. Temescal Canyon is where the high school is. Caught the high school on fire. Then it went all the way down Temescal Canyon. Temescal Canyon goes all the way to the beach. It went all the way down Temescal Canyon. And guess what's at the bottom there? Mobile homes. Fires love mobile homes. It ate up the mobile homes. And instead of jumping Sunset where I thought it'll never jump, it never jumped. It came down, it came through, it came up. The winds were going everywhere. It attacked all these neighborhoods who had never caught on fire before. And here I am with the fire hydrant on my front lawn that was never opened. It was never touched. There were a lot of things that went wrong in LA, including an empty reservoir, including firefighters saying that they would open a hydrant and no water would come out. And they had to just stand there and watch communities burn. My community was so tucked away, no one even got there. My fire hydrant, when I finally went back 3 weeks later, had not even been opened. And I have a photo of it. It's still bright yellow. They had just painted it. So, this idea of it can't happen to me, I want to say, please don't have that idea. It could happen to any of us. And when I moved up here, I got here just to stay and see my daughter and see some friends. And as I met people, they were like, I was like, you all are so welcoming. Like people are so much nicer here than where I'm from. And they said, we're all kind of in the back of our minds thinking it could be us. Like it could be us. And I hate to say that, but it could be any of us. Like living in California, it could be any of us. There's climate change, there's all this. So a few things that I talked to the team about, and I noticed they wrote them down and they make me sound so much more eloquent than I am, but kind of like lessons learned. So the know your neighbors, right? Like you don't have to be best friends with them. Know two neighbors and know those two neighbors and hope that they know two more neighbors. Because when you're in this situation, for the people who were outside of the Palisades and they couldn't get in, or they got in and they were like, you can get your child or you can go to your house and get your dog, right? They were able to call their neighbors and say, can you get my dog? I got to go get my kid. You have to have that neighbor connection. And I think in this day and age, people aren't face to face and connecting as much as maybe we used to be. But just like someone new moves into the neighborhood, maybe welcome them, give them your number, because having that contact is really important. So that was one of the things I mentioned. So the film a walkthrough of your home. Here's the one thing. I did a lot of things really well. I gotta say, I'm super proud of myself. Having the box of all my documents and having it in my garage next to my car, brilliant. I gotta say, I didn't see how brilliant it was gonna be. That was fantastic. Now, some people might think that's crazy to put your precious documents in a garage where the door is opening and closing all the time. That might have been kind of stupid, but having it nearby so you can grab it and go if you have to go is great. There was a lot of talk afterwards about having a run bag packed. I totally think that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Your run bag is like, you need like a change of clothes is what you need, right? Like you're leaving because you're fleeing a fire. The things you really want to take with you, you're not going to be leaving in your run bag. Like if I had known, even in my 10 minutes of getting out, if I had thought I wasn't coming back, I would have walked down the hallway and I would have grabbed all the artwork from my daughters that was hanging on the wall. And when I got to the end of that hallway, I would have grabbed the baby books that were sitting there because my oldest daughter was born before digital, and my youngest one, I still can't find a baby book picture of her. I would have grabbed those, right? Like the things you think what you would grab are maybe not be the things you grab. I didn't, the diamonds, the whatever, like I didn't care about that stuff the day after when it was all gone. What I cared about are the things I couldn't replace. And so the idea of a run bag, I think, is ridiculous simply because the precious things live in your house. You are not going to take your precious things and throw them in a run bag and put them in your garage. The only thing that you really need in your run bag is going to be, you know, toiletries, medicine, change of clothes, right? You probably have those with you. You're not going to leave. I mean, maybe you want to put some emergency medicine. If you need an EpiPen, maybe leave an EpiPen in your run bag or something like that. But this idea that you're going to pack for a week in a run bag and leave that, I think it's kind of nonsensical, just given my experience. My experience is, if I could say anything, is think about if you have 5 minutes to leave, if you have 10 minutes to leave, if you have 15 minutes to leave, what do you grab? If you tomorrow, so you're going to wake up and someone's going to say, you just lost everything. What's the thing that's going to make you cry when you think, I just lost that? That's what you grab. And if you can just make that list in your head, maybe put it on your phone so you don't forget it or whatever. And if you have to run, just be like, okay, here's what I have to grab. We all know where those things are in our house. You don't need to organize them or whatever. I would have grabbed the art. I would have grabbed the baby books. If I had time, I probably would have grabbed some of the jewelry that I wanted to leave behind to my kids. But, you know, jewelry's replaceable. That other stuff isn't, right? And so, you know, that's one thing I regret, is that I just didn't think I was not coming back. So if you evacuate, if you get the call, say, okay, I'm evacuating, I might not come back. Because we evacuated so many times, it was like I said, the boy who cried wolf. I was like, I'm evacuating again, I'll be back tomorrow. It'll be fine. So I think that's an important thing. Another one is the walkthrough of your home. So that little voice that was like, film the house, she was the little voice that was going to be dealing with State Farm for the next 18 months. Because that's what's happening right now, is down to like, so you had paper clips on your desk? What size were your paper clips and how big a box was it? I am not joking. That is the conversation I'm having. How many spoons did I have? I'm like, I don't know. I had a set of silverware. How many spoons? Was it 12? Was it 16? I'm like, I don't know. So people think, oh, I'll take pictures of my precious things. Take pictures of all of it, because you're going to go through it and they're going to ask you. And if you just spend a half hour and just take a video of everything in your house, open the drawers, quickly open the drawer, this drawer, this drawer, this drawer, get all your utensils, get all that, get all the jewelry, all the books, all the office supplies, all the stuff that you think doesn't matter. Boy, does that stuff add up. When you're sitting there doing the insurance form, it adds up fast. Make sure you show all your furniture. I was really fortunate in that I had refinanced my house during COVID, and an inspector couldn't come because it was COVID. So I took pictures of every single room looking perfect. So now when they're like, we don't believe you that you had that piece of furniture, and I'm like, oh, here's a picture. Now the picture is 3 years old, but that's okay. I have a picture of it. Most people don't have that picture. So if you take a video, you could screenshot any single picture you ever need to prove something, but also when you have to sit down and make that list, you know the list. So I would look at those pictures and I'm like, I see the wall and I see all the frames and all the books, and I'm like, oh wow, I had like way more than I remember, right? Take the pictures, take the videos, just document what you have when you're dealing with insurance. Every single thing I had, all my photos are on the cloud. Most of you probably have that too. Just put everything on the cloud. It makes life so easy. Same with like passports, birth certificates, all that stuff. In case you don't have the run box that I had, just take a picture of absolutely every document that you think you might need, whether it's the pink slip to your car, the deed to your house, your insurance policy number, all that good stuff. Signing up for official alerts. I've signed up for every single thing that you guys have up here since I moved up here. I'm getting alerted to everything. It could be like someone's fishing and over here and he caught a fish. Like I'm getting everything. Just sign up for everything. The irony about LA being so great about always alerting us is they were terrible that day. I received the evacuation notice 1.5 hours after I left my house. So I was already sitting my dad's. The fire was already coming to the polo fields. I was already getting to evacuate for a second time when I got the notice to evacuate. According to the Ring camera, my house was maybe gone by then. So don't rely on that. Don't rely on the evacuation report. That's where you're like calling a neighbor, calling someone who lives closer to the fire than you live and be like, hey, what are you seeing? What's going on? You know your evacuation zone. So this was critical too. The Palisades was really a struggle because there was one road in and out, Sunset Boulevard. I was very, very fortunate that we lived above that private road and we were able to get out, or as I said, I would have been running from the flames. I moved to Woodside. My friends were like, could you have picked an area that wasn't close to fire? And I immediately panicked and decided I needed to go make friends with the firemen. We have to do that. We keep saying we're going to make cookies and bring them and make friends with the firemen so they know where we are. But I was like, oh my God, there's one road in and out. And then I started walking my dog and I'm like, there's many roads. I know now there's many roads. There's different ways that you can find your way in and out of a community. Know your pathways so that if you get to the main road and you're stuck, who cares if you're a jerk? You make a 3-point turn in the middle of traffic, get yourself out and get yourself on another path. So something to think about. So now this is me. So I think about all this stuff now. I mean, the day before the fire, I was driving home. I had a half tank of gas, and the little voice in my head was like, you should stop and get gas. And like I said, I always listen to the little voice. So I stopped and I filled up my tank with gas. When the fire happened the next day, every gas station closed. You couldn't get out of LA because you could, like, if I didn't have a tank of gas, I wouldn't have been able to drive up here. I wouldn't have been able to get as far as I got. So I never let my gas tank go below like a half, maybe a third at most. Always keep gas in your tank. I know everyone drives electric cars. Here's the thing. They turn the electricity off when there's a fire. Figure out what your backup plan is. If your car is dead, if you don't have electricity, like figure out now what would you do? Because when it happens, you're kind of stuck, right? So the evacuation zone, keeping gas in your car, super important. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is where they added one simple rule. If you get an evacuation warning, pack early, move your valuables, stay situationally aware. Yeah, I think situational awareness is really important. And this is where it's like you panic or you don't panic. Like I said, I'm not someone who panics. I've lived through a bunch of crises in my life. But if you can have your wits about you, it's a lot easier to do that. The fact that you're even here means you've already thought about what would I do if this happens. So thinking, what would I do? What would I set ahead? What would I set aside? The documents, please set those aside so you know where to get them easily and get out. Know what would go into your run bag. Know what you would take if you had all these valuables or precious things that you want to take with you, and be like, okay, what if I have 5 minutes to go? What am I grabbing? If I have 10 minutes to go, what am I grabbing? If I had 15, 20, I had 10, right? I mean, I could have stayed longer. No one was telling me to evacuate, but I'm so grateful that I did. I'm so grateful for Amelia over there. She's on The Young and the Restless. She's lovely. You should check her out. I was so grateful for her being like, I think we should go. Like, I think we need to go. Because the dummy who probably would have waited for the evacuation order that wasn't coming, and I would have gotten stuck. So yeah, those are my pieces of advice. And like I said, I think our community is very similar to this community. People genuinely care about each other. There's a lot of families. There's a lot of wealth. There's a lot of sense of like, I don't need this. I'll be fine. Like I've got it covered. But it could happen to any of us. And so when I was invited to speak again, I was really happy to do it simply because I think sometimes just sharing your story helps people start to picture themselves in an environment like that and like, what would I do? And so anyways, thank you for listening. So.
Aren't we fortunate to have Heather willing to
thank
spend
you.
her time with us tonight?
Thank you.
And to share a valuable experience. I think, the authenticity is in her response to the fire, and the whole emotion of it can be, it should be, now is time, and that kind of things is so critical for us to be able to take notes. So thank you, Heather, for spending your time, and Ella for being here too. So now we're opening to the Q&A. Any questions? We're also very fortunate to have our fire chief, who is also very seasoned and experienced in many of the disasters up and down the state. We also have our city managers. And as I said, our council is very strong in supporting the emergency preparedness. So Any questions? Yes.
I mean, I know Palisades. You weren't in a WUI zone, were you?
In
You
a
weren't.
what?
You weren't in one of these wild. You weren't. You were just in a neighborhood.
I was just in a neighborhood. I was on a cliff above the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in a neighborhood.
It was not, and this is why I said if they had done a meeting like this, I probably wouldn't have gone because I was like,
Yeah.
we don't live in the woods. We
yeah,
don't
just
live.
in a neighborhood.
We just lived in a neighborhood. I mean, that was the crazy thing is it hit the neighborhoods.
Right.
It hit the businesses. It hit like this. It would be like imagine your downtown area getting wiped out. You would think that's impossible. The mountains are so far away. How in the world could that happen? That's what happened. It was defied belief.
Did every house on your little, except for the one?
Okay, so we were a circle and our circle was, the beach club was down there and there were some majorly famous people on my circle, again, Los Angeles. Every single house burned except for the crappy house next to me that Mrs. Kravitz owned. And I think she would not be mad if I said the crappy house next to me because she was like, my house is a mess. I can't believe it survived. And there was a house that had just been built on the corner that we called Taco Bell because it was all cement and they had put a bell at the top of it. And all the neighbors hated it. It survived. So now they've got a Taco Bell and black ashes everywhere in Mrs. Kravitz's house and my frogs.
And you saw the one neighbor, but did you ever know what happened to your other neighbors?
So my neighbor across the street, Dana, has children in Redwood City. So we were in touch. I was like, I'm up here and she's up here. And I was like, do you have any news? And we all kind of got the news around the same time that our homes were gone. And so it was just kind of like consoling each other and all of that. The ones across the way, the actress, she and her husband moved in with his family in West Hollywood. And the people, Shireen, my Mrs. Kravitz, she was staying with family nearby. So, and so we were all kind of on the group chat, like, here's where I am, where are you, what's going on? And now the chat is, are you going to sell or are you going to rebuild? So the chat has now moved immediately after everyone's like, I'm building, I'm rebuilding, I'm rebuilding, I'm rebuilding. We're a year later now. It's like, we heard this one just sold. So this is kind of what's happening in the chat now. But honestly, again, that's really good to know your neighbors because like, I'm not so sure I want to go back. And so if I'm learning things are selling around me, like that's good information to have. Again, another reason to know your neighbors. Yeah. Hi.
How do the emergency zone numbers help you exactly?
The emergency zone numbers.
Go back.
Oh, so I had signed up for every single thing in LA. So they would tell me if there was a fire nearby. They would tell me if there was a storm watch. I'm still getting storm watch alerts.
I wasn't talking about evacuation, but emergency zone numbers.
So I don't know what an emergency zone.
So I think that you are talking about what we call now the Genesis Protect, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So up here, we have Genesis Protect, and that designed our town into 9 different zones.
Oh,
And we encourage everyone to plug in their address on the website to find out which zone they are in. And the notion is when it comes to a scale disasters, sometimes the notification of whether you should evacuate or you are on hold for next evacuation can be in the term of zone. Although I'm going to pass it on to the chief to give us a little bit more details about the evacuation.
Sure. So the Know Your Zone campaign was for you to be aware of what the zone number is. And so if you look at the public facing map on Genesis, it's the same system that was in use in LA. And you can see with the numbering system and how the town is divided up by zone. So it's helpful for you to know that. It's also helpful for you to bookmark the public facing map because as we employ evacuations, we'll turn those zones into red for evacuation and yellow for warning. And that is something that's visible to you as well. So we will notify the public by zone number, but we will also bracket it with streets and describe the area that is mandatory evacuation. So you can figure out exactly where you are, whether you know your zone or not.
and that is what happened. That's why we were watching and we saw that our zone had shown it was unburned when everything around us had burned. But yeah, we were broken into zones. And so you just find it on the map.
Thank you.
And next we'll go to Holly.
Chief, on the evacuation system and the zones, and when the announcements go out, we've had issues as we're getting used to those. And I understand at the EOC in Redwood City that that's who dispatches them, but you're the one who would give the go-ahead. Is that right?
Yeah, so for an evacuation in the context of a wildfire,
Here,
the fire department tells the police department, this is the zone we want evacuated. Evacuation is a police department function. We're trying to put the fire out. They're trying to get the people out. And so we will tell them, and it's really under the authority of the police chief or their designee to say this is a mandatory evacuation. There's some legality that goes with that.
and then the physical dispatch of the text announcement comes through Redwood City?
From San Mateo County DEM
Yeah.
through Redwood City, but we also can launch some messages locally too. There are some systems that you don't have to opt in, kind of like the Amber Alert type systems that have to get escalated through the county, and to be able to launch those messages, you don't have to be signed up for anything for those. Those are mandatory. They're geo-fenced. If you drive into the area, it will notify you whether you're signed up for anything or not. The SMC alert system is the one that is fastest for us. But it also is an opt-in system. You have to sign up for it.
Right.
The one thing I want to do a pop quiz for everybody, because you guys have heard me talk a couple times. What do I say when it comes to evacuation? Don't wait. Anyone? Evacuate? Right. And that's because of exactly what happened here. When something like this is happening, the fire department is scrambling to get resources in place to fight the fire. And if you see a column of smoke, especially if it's laying down like you're describing, and hurricane force winds, that notification takes time. It's phone calls, it's scripting the message telling somebody this is the message we need to launch, and we don't want you to wait. If you see that kind of conditions, leave. You can always come back if everything works out, but we'd much rather have people not wait for us because that notification takes time, and so take that initiative and leave.
So Chief, there's another question following about the high-low announcement. Could you talk about that?
Correct. So there's the notification system, but we have to be prepared to go old school, right? Because phone lines are going to burn down, cell towers are going to burn down. I've been on multiple fires where that was one of the first infrastructures affected. So that's going to affect your text messaging, your phone calls, and your cell numbers. Sometimes on the Eaton side, when that fire started, that was at nighttime. People will plug their phones in and leave them in the kitchen. So there's a variety of reasons why notifications can be problematic, and it's on the individual. There's some personal responsibility to make sure you're available to receive that message. So we have to be able to go old school also. And the high-low siren that the police departments have for their police cars sounds like a European siren. Is just high-low. It's not what you normally see when they're driving to an accident or something. If you hear that, that is an evacuation. That will also be followed up with PA announcements by voice. And also knocking on doors. I mean, on the Eaton side, LA County Sheriff's Office, it's amazing they didn't lose anybody. They were in really horrible conditions with no protective equipment, pounding on doors, carrying people out of their house for old folks' homes, and it was bad. So we have to be able to go old school too.
Heather, I have a question about where you are in the insurance process and how has that been going?
So the first 60 to 70% went smoothly. And then I took the advice of quite a few people who said, you're probably going to have to engage an insurance adjuster to get the rest of what you're owed. And so I did. And so it went remarkably smoothly after that. And I got my final check for my house about a week ago, but I'm still battling with them over my possessions, which is the take a video of your house warning. And the possessions, what I was insured for, I'm already at 3x that in terms of the list, and they're still challenging me on it. And that's going to be one of those stupid things where it's like every photo I have, I'm like, here, this is what everything looked like, but I don't have receipts of anything. All my receipts burned, right? So I'm close to the end, I think, with the insurance process. And I am really glad that I ended up just hiring a team. It's a bummer because you end up losing a percentage of money that's rightfully yours. But for my mental health, honestly, those first 2 months, I would get up every morning, and every morning it was reliving the fire and talking to the insurance company and talking to the bank. And like all the resources from the city were wonderful, but it was like just being bombarded with fire. And I'm not someone who talks about mental health a lot, but it was really getting to me. And so after those first couple months, I just thought, I just need to hand it over to someone so I can get on with my life and stop thinking about it, because it's all consuming. And I think if I'd stayed there, it would be even worse, because when I go and I visit, everyone around you has been through that fire, right? So my father still lives there. We're still in the community. And there's just this kind of like hangover from the fire that's still there. So I think moving was really, really a good thing. She's nodding, so I know I did the right thing.
Thanks for doing this, Heather. Did you ever find out why the fire department didn't make it to your neighborhood? You
They
know,
just couldn't, they simply
They just
couldn't.
couldn't get
The fire went so fast, and they were so understaffed, and they had firemen coming in from all over. I mean, all over. We had people coming in from Mexico and Canada and whatever, but that first night, the planes couldn't fly because of the winds. So the firefighting planes couldn't get there, and the guys on the ground were just struggling to stay ahead of it. And they went to kind of the main parts of town. And like I said, we were this little nook. Like before I moved there, I didn't even know that nook existed, and I had grown up in that town, right? So I think it was just an easy thing to overlook, but it was also, they were trying to save the larger community, which was the businesses, the flats over by the cliffs, the alphabet streets, all those areas that were so densely populated. And that's where they were already running out of water. So I think the winds, you know, a lot of credit. I love firemen. I think you guys are my heroes. I moved to New York right before 9/11, and then I was here for the Palisades fire, and these guys are like running into danger, you know? And so the pictures I saw and the videos I saw of that time, I just think they couldn't get there. They couldn't be everywhere. They were too short staffed. Yeah.
And when you have limited resources, we have to prioritize too. So the priority first is life safety. And so if you have to expend fire resources to protect people as they're trying to get out, that's what we have to do. That the property comes second. It's always life over property.
Thank you. So thank you for the courage of coming here and telling us all your story.
Yeah.
I've heard the story a fair amount because my son-in-law is a English teacher at Pacific Palisades High School.
Ah.
So the first night of the fire, he was watching the fire take place on the news, and he says, "Oh, there goes my classroom."
Yeah. They just opened.
It just opened.
just
He moved in a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So they were in an abandoned Sears building for the last
Yeah.
year or so, which
Yeah.
wasn't the greatest for the students, wasn't great for his teaching, but he's finally back in his classroom. So, but I remember the first day that this happened, there was a message from Trump. I hate to be political about it. He said, "This is all because of the incompetence of Newsom." And there may have been some incompetence somewhere from the mayor being out of the office.
I
And
blame Mayor Bass, frankly, more than
what's
Newsom.
that?
I blame Mayor Bass
Yeah.
more than Newsom. Yeah.
Yeah, so there were things that probably could have been done better. What do you think could have been done better from an administrative standpoint to prevent some of this from happening?
Well, for starters, I lived a mile and a half from a giant reservoir that sat empty. So that's a biggie. That's a biggie that Mayor Bass didn't prioritize filling that reservoir. They also cut the budget on testing all the fire hydrants. So there were some fire hydrants that just didn't work. So that's administrative. That's something that you can blame the city for. I hate to blame the city. Like my daughter works for the city council. My other daughter went to public school. I want them to have all the resources they have, but like we pay really high taxes. And so could you just keep us safe? You know, could you make sure that the reservoir is full and the fire hydrants work? Like that's kind of important when you live in a fire zone. The other thing is I didn't realize that it goes through so many channels before you get your alerts. But like I said, they were always great with the alerts. So they were really good with alerts. But somehow that day, I think it just hit this crisis proportion that caught everyone off guard. I got my alert and then silence for an hour and a half. And then an hour and a half later, it says you should evacuate. And by then, the Palisades was gone. And so administratively, that's probably something that I would guess the city's looking at is like, when you're at that crisis level, what kicks into gear so that you're talking to your residents, you know? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The other issue in the initial stages of a fire is if you can imagine you're at an incident command post and the on-duty battalion chief is there and they have the fire burning around them. They didn't have a good overhead view to know, they knew which way the winds were blowing, but which neighborhood was affected, who needed to be notified first. Without an aerial view, that slowed it down. I mean, the winds were so strong and this was moving so fast, it was no longer a wildland fire. It became a structure fire that propagated from structure to structure to structure. And so it ceased to become a wildland fire as it got towards the beach. But that is the situation that we're in those initial stages. And that's why we will do our best to get those notifications out. It's really important. Public information is one of the most important priorities in the initial stages. Information is really difficult to make sure it's correct and gives the proper instruction when you're in the middle of that.
I have a question. My mother-in-law lives in Sonoma and she almost lost she lost part of her property to the fire in Sonoma. And her takeaway from that was she has a pool and there's like this thing that you can buy that is like a generator with a big
Yeah,
hose on it.
my dad used that. His house was saved.
Oh, okay, cool. So
Yeah.
could you talk about that
I would
possibility?
love to. Okay, so after these incidents, there was a lot of advertisement for those kinds of systems. And the video that I saw showed that they had the sprinkler going and it was running off the pool water, and they had the pump running, and they were standing there with hoses ready to fight some fire. They were in shorts. Their patio furniture was still stacked against their structure. All of the things that we talk about, the basics of protecting your home during a wildfire, were not done. And it's really easy before the smoke column lies down on top of you to think that you got it when you're standing there in shorts and you are now in the thick of it. You are not going to want to be there. Every part of your lizard brain is going to be screaming at you to get out. So with that system, I'm fine with it if it is standalone and it does not slow down your evacuation. And do not think for a second that you can stand there with a hose line, untrained, unequipped, without communication with fire departments and other people that can help you and protect your home. If it's automated, you set it there, it's running, and you leave, and it does not slow down your evacuation, then I'm okay with it. It depends. It depends if we can get in there. It depends on the conditions. And so if we're occupied by trying to get people out and we're not to the point where we have enough resources to actually start protecting structures, when we decide that we're going to start defending a neighborhood or a structure, it has to be a spot that we can survive it. We don't go there and sacrifice ourselves, that life safety, to save a structure. And so it has to be defensible. Meaning the vegetation is controlled. The structure is not a wooden structure. There's not trees right on top of it. There's a variety of things that we look at before we decide to make a stand at any particular area. And in the initial stages, again, the focus is going to be on life. So that could be left there, but maybe it gets set up, maybe it doesn't.
When I say my father, it helped him. He watered his house. So he also is a very bad person that he didn't evacuate. So he evacuated for a little while and then he sneaked back in. But what he did when he sneaked back in is he used that tool and he watered the house, because what was happening, the embers were kind of randomly hitting houses. So the house across and one over from him burned down. The cross 2 doors down burned down. His house was fine. His neighbor was fine. The one right in front of him was fine. The randomness of it was because of the embers and the wind. And so by watering his house down, he believes that helped save him from like some of the embers that hit other places in the neighborhood.
So,
but he's also a very bad guy that he didn't evacuate. So I'm going to say that, like, very bad citizen. Yeah.
So right now you have all the time in the world, right? You're not in the middle of an emergency. There are so many things you can do for your home and your yard and the fuel management around you right now, where you're not under the pressure of a fire coming towards you. And so we're talking about the events with the proper metal in there, to keep the embers out from going into most fires start by going embers into your attic space, and that's where it gets established in the structure. Your gutters, making sure those are clean, maybe making sure they're covered. All of those things that are on our website that you have plenty of time to do right now, now's the time to do it.
Hi. In terms of the toxins in the soil, how is that affecting your future and what are you doing about it? And secondly, toxins in your home. We hear so much about the homes now are so full of toxins that people, even though they survived, the house survived, there's so many toxins inside. So how does that affect you and
Yeah.
all your neighbors?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm not saying that to buy time. I'm saying it's because it's a really good question because the toxicity in the air in that area is still quite high. And, you know, as I said, my father's house survived. He stayed. He's friends with with a bunch of cops, so they let him stay. And he protected his house. However, I have a terrible cough every time I visit that house, right? And the State Farm has sent people out and they've taken all the rugs and they've cleaned all the curtains and they've, you know, done everything that you're supposed to do that says the house is clean. But there's like his HVAC system has to be totally redone because the toxins have sneaked into, you know, all the crevices of the house. So for the people who kept their houses, ironically, and I've talked to friends people who've lost their houses and people who didn't. And the consensus that those of us who lost our houses, despite the horribleness of losing everything, are kind of in better shape because the people whose houses survived are being compelled by insurance to like clean it up, move back in. Like, I'm not going to keep paying your ALE. I'm not going to, whatever, like clean it up and move back in. They've been doing some tests, independent companies have been doing tests around the community, and they're still finding toxicity in the soil. And so, you know, for my purposes, I'm in no hurry to rebuild. I kind of want to take the temperature and see what's going on in the community. I'm just going to hang on to my lot and let everyone around me kind of test their soil and see what's going on. But like, I have kids and dogs, and like, I don't want to go back to a place, you know, the Army Corps took 6 inches of soil and then they didn't test it. Usually after fire, correct me if I'm wrong, they take a certain amount of the soil and then they test it to make sure it's safe. That didn't happen in the Palisades. I don't know about Altadena. And so a lot of people are engaging independent companies and labs to test before they consider rebuilding. Yeah.
So I'm very grateful that everyone stayed, and but we want to respect your time. It is 8 o'clock. Heather is very kind to say that she will stay behind to answer any more questions. And at this moment, I'm going to invite Lisa up to present our guest speaker a gift.
Such a traumatic event. And we're so grateful that you came and shared that moment with us. And you've left us with so much to think about. You know, it's one thing to read about what we should be doing to prepare, but to actually internalize what you went through has been just really, I think it's profound. And the tips, just practical tips, you know, photographing our house. It doesn't have to be clean. You don't have to clean the drawer. Don't clean the drawer. Yeah. But so we just want to thank you for your advocacy, your time. You are busy, you work, and this is something that you're doing for your community and neighbors. And so with that, we'd just like to say thank you so much. Really a pleasure. Okay. We have a And just a final announcement that we have a save the date flyer. So please put that on your calendar for our townwide drill. And we'll follow the speaker series up with another speaker and look for that in your email. And if you haven't signed up for our email newsletter, please go ahead and do that and stay in touch with us. Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight.
We do have one more question. Sally, you want to ask that questions?
With the 7,000 homes that were destroyed, how many have been effectively rebuilt?
None. There was one home that they just considered like a victory. It was rebuilt, but it was bought by a developer before the fire, and he had already raised the land, and he had already turned in all his permits, and he was already ready to go. And so he got his up, and they're like, "Yay, there's a house." There's one that's been rebuilt. It's been a year. Yeah.